Hello there, people, and welcome back to I think I'm calling it the Free Thought stream now, or the Common Sense Guy stream, or the I don't know what the fuck I'm calling it anymore. It's a name change apparently. Everybody's doing it, so I thought fuck it, why not? To be fair, I was getting the reason why I did a name change very quickly, because I know people are going to ask anyway, is simply because I'm getting bored of people nullifying arguments by saying, "Oh, common sense doesn't even exist." And then going through the whole explanation of saying that's the reason why I picked the name, because I knew you wouldn't go against the argument. You would go against the argument, and you would use me as that to go against it. Nothing to do with actually going against the argument properly. So I'm getting bored doing all this for a name change and I thought, as nobody's actually got it at this moment in time, I thought I'd nick it. So I've nicked it. As you can see, I am on a stream with two other people today, and I am here with ladies first, Crumple Point and Miss Sharati. How are you all doing today? Well, introductions went well.
I'm brilliant, love.
Cheers, sugar. How you doing, Mr. Crumple Point?
I'm alright, dude. You're lagging a little bit. You went a bit robot there, so that's maybe why we didn't hear you. But we could still understand everything you were saying, but it was speeding up and slowing down. But anyway, thank you for having me on. It's good to be on. It's good to see everybody in the chat, and it's good to see you're looking good, man.
Oh, I thought that was just me. Thank you for noticing too. I thought I was going insane.
I'm trying my best. Am I still a robot? And I would be, yes, because I'm live streaming. And as I said before, CPU is not doing too well at deciding to stay cool. So if things do start going wrong, it is simply because of the CPU usage. So just don't worry. It's just normal things.
It's funny what you said about the name change, because Michael Malice keeps having the same problem. He deliberately called his show You're Welcome, but YOUR.
Mm-hmm.
Because of similar reasons to yourself. It was a joke and it has a double meaning and all that. And the amount of corrections he gets, and it's like, oh, you're so thick and you think you're not.
Yes. I've had that argument so many times. It's like, oh, well, how arrogant that somebody calls himself the common sense guy. And it's just, no, it wasn't arrogance. It's just me trying to say I'm either a double-edged sword. One, that I'm just a common person or a common guy, whatever. And the other one is that using common sense, that's bullshit. Those were the two reasons why I picked the name. And the third, and the most important reason, was because I knew people would pick up on the name and attack the name rather than the argument. It's just funny to me. It just really is. It's just don't worry about actually talking to people. Let's just try and destroy their arguments by name calling them.
Well, it was funny the first 400 times, but now
exactly that. Yeah. Like the first couple of times, I was like, yeah, I'm so smart. I knew this was going to fucking happen. And then you get to, as you said, like the 400th time, and you're just like, yeah, I'm bored of this now.
What have I done?
Pretty much, yes. I know that Sharati is very interested in getting into this story, so let's hope that I can actually bring it up, because last time I couldn't bring it up due to process and fucking shit power. But I can bring it up, so we will be able to bring it up. So let me just quickly go to the page and then back to Hangouts and just talk amongst yourselves, because I'm a boomer.
Yeah, honey, I'm pretty sure I'm still older than you, but I hate this subject, and you know it.
I do. That's one of the reasons why I majoritively picked the story and decided to put it first and at the top of the bill, so to speak. So let's just get this title out of the way, and then the subtitle, and then we will have at it, so to speak. So another woman in China is pregnant with a genetically engineered baby. At long, fuck that name, he said he did 31 gene human embryos so far. So, good idea, bad idea, the consensus.
John Q is a dick and needs to leave humans alone as far as genetic modification.
Okay. Do we have a counter argument to that, or are we in agreement?
I'm not blanketly against like genetically altering shit. It depends what you're talking about. Like, but I think that this story is almost misdirection because this isn't just like gene altering for medicine. This is the Chinese Communist Party gene altering people, you know? So
Are you trying to say there's eugenics involved in this?
I'm trying to say that not only is there eugenics involved in it, but that they won't actually be doing it. Like, or they'll be trying. But I mean, the thing that we all know about communism is that it doesn't work, and everything it tries to do doesn't work. So a lot of these, there's been a few stories like this over the last few years, and one thing they always have in common is people think that they're going to get like a genetically enhanced super spider baby, and it turns out that all they did was genetically engineer the baby to have like be slightly taller, you know, something like that. But the reason that this experiment has come about is because, in my ignorance, I cannot remember the name of the ethnicity that the Chinese Communist Party considered to be Chinese. Because you know, if you look at people from different parts of China, that they're clearly not all the same looking, and they have different genetic lineages. So,
of course, the same as the Slavs are not the same as the Germanic people.
Exactly the same. So they've picked one, whichever one, you know, Beijing is, and what they want is, in order to create a completely uniform society, they want to do this by being able to genetically edit out all the other ethnicities in China, so that even if you are of an ethnicity, they'll edit your baby so that it has a quote Chinese baby. So this was done to basically eradicate what are known as the Uyghur people in Xinjiang province in China. And these are the ones that are getting taken for health checks, and then they're being killed and their organs are being sold. That's them. And one of the things they're doing is they're trying to see if they can genetically turn these people into ethnic, you know, Chinese rather than ethnic Turkmenistan.
Yeah,
that's what this is all about. It's nothing to do with superpowers or progress. It's simple racism.
No, it's not just eugenics that I've got a problem with. I actually have no issues with eugenics and modifying or getting rid of simple, oh God, medical issues, whatever. This guy modified babies in the womb so that they're not susceptible to HIV. He's now modified another baby. I don't know what exactly he modified it against or for or what have you. But CRISPR and Cas9, you're taking a chance with a virus to modify a gene. They don't know exactly what it is.
Sure, but I mean, me personally, I don't have, as you quite rightly said, I don't have much of a problem when it comes to the idea of genetically, should we say, engineering, for lack of better wording, getting rid of HIV, as in the setability gene, which is a case of meaning that you would catch it and so on and so forth, or would retain it, should I say. I don't have a problem with that. Same as if it was to elevate it into cancers or other forms of treatment, other forms of genes that would be the susceptibility gene being eradicated from the humanity. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem, as what Crumple Point has suggested, where it's a case of genetically modifying people to fit parameters that affect a already preconceived notion of what humanity or humans or a perceived set of humans should be. That I have a very, very ethical issue with. Now, if people grow up and they've got big noses, I don't have a problem with that. If people grow up and they look different to their mum and dads, that's the way the genetics work. But when you start going into genetics and you literally are designing what the baby looks like, and you're designing in what the skin tone is, what the eye color is, and so on and so forth. I have massive problems with all of that ideas of designer babyisms, simply because that's not benefiting humanity. That's benefiting the stereotypes that are coming from prejudice from their own parents.
And the
Nothing to
only
do with
reason
actually helping.
the only reason America's not doing that right now is because we are not allowed to work on children. We're allowed to work on adults right now, but it's illegal to work on children.
Well, this is why I find this argument both interesting and difficult, because people like to talk about the ethics of simple genetic modification, and I do too, and it's interesting, and I'm sure we'll do that over the course of this part. But this isn't a hypothetical philosophical argument. This is a very specific real world situation, and this article and every other article that's been covering this are just trying to make it about this hypothetical thing. Nobody's talking about the Uyghur people. Nobody's talking about the fact that the CCP are trying to genetically edit their entire population. Nobody's talking about the fact that in order to create a cure for HIV and know it works, you have to fail a number of times, and the way you fail in this case is giving lots of babies HIV. Nobody's talking about that. That's the only way they know it works, which they don't know it works. And the other thing is, if you know anything about genetics, we know fuck all about genetics. When people hear about the fact we've mapped the genome, we've mapped it in the sense that we know what it looks like and how big it is. They say that 90% of, or something ridiculous like that, it's like 90 or 60% of DNA has no obvious function. That's obviously bullshit. It's just we haven't discovered its function yet, which means we know nothing about it. And they're just
the
going
wording's
around
different. Sorry, the wording's different. It's not that 90% of DNA that we're aware of isn't functional. It's 90% of DNA is non-differentiate from any other form of organic life, and it's only the last 10% of DNA that changes that actually gives us differences from amoeba cells.
No, yeah, that's true as well, because I know the thing about us being like 1% different to a mouse and things like that. But the other thing is there's a certain percentage they say has no obvious function, and that's just not true, because everything's there for a reason when it comes to nature. It just means they haven't discovered its function yet, and so you can't just go poking around with this stuff and expect there to be no human cost. And I particularly wouldn't want to see the human cost of what this guy's been up to personally.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, I don't think that there should be humane costs or human costs in general. But I suppose in the scheme of things, I'm playing devil's advocate more than anything, because I think humans' life is more worth sanctity than anything else. But as playing devil's advocate, as it's free thought and whatnot, do sometimes the means justify the ends? Because what I mean was, if you have 100 to 200,000 people that die and then HIV is cured, can you actually weigh those lives up to the cure of HIV? Or even to put it into more of a bigger perspective, what if you were to put into 2 million people that were to die in these experiments to cure cancer, all cancers? Would that be worth it? And is that an argument that we are willing to have?
Sorry, go, Shara, you go.
Again, this thing that they're using, CRISPR and Cas9, it's a virus to cure whatever the hell they're working on curing at the present moment, be it HIV, let's say fibromyalgia, anything that they want to potentially cure.
Sure.
They have to. They're going to stick a virus inside of you, and that virus will go wherever the fuck it wants to go.
Agreed. That wasn't what my question.
No, my point is, it will go wherever the fuck it wants to go, so it's going to kill a lot more than 500 or 600 people. It's going to kill thousands of people. So, or maybe even hundreds of thousands.
Which is what I said at the beginning.
Before how to put it in place.
Yeah, which is what I said at the beginning. Even if it was to kill millions of people before it was able to cure cancer and all cancers in itself, is that something that we, if we knew that that would happen, would we let that happen? And I mean we, as in the proverbial we, the three of us that are here. Me, if I was to put on my non-morality thinking head, yes, I would. I would do that if it was to cure cancer. My morality head says no, fuck. One of my family members could be part of that 2 million people that died, or 3 million people that died, or all of the people that I know, or all of the country. But
Yeah,
the point,
like, nothing exists in a vacuum, so you can't have that scenario and not be paying a significant price for it. So let's say your scenario of, is it worth sacrificing 2 million people to save everybody from cancer? I'd say no. But if everybody of the 2 million volunteered, like say all 2 million of those people had known somebody with cancer who died and they volunteered for the experiment, well, that's a different story. But if you're talking some kind of horrible Soviet pick one at random, or eugenically pick one
or
and just
criminals.
inject them, no, it's
Criminals
never worth it.
in general. Criminals in general, then. Say for instance, to try and put a moral standing on it, criminals that were going to be executed, because China still executes criminals in themselves as well. Say, for instance, and other countries would do as well, or long-serving criminals that had an option. They could either be part of this experiment, and if they survive, then they can go free, and if they don't, so be it. Would that then be worth it if they were then given that option?
Nope.
No, I wouldn't. The problem is that, firstly, it's not just a numbers game, because it's like human beings aren't, beads on an abacus. It's not just like, oh, there's more on this side, so they're worth more. It doesn't work like that.
Sure.
And the other thing is that you're then devaluing the legal system, aren't you? And then in the case of China, they will arrest people for anything there. They'll arrest people because they're down on arrests, and they need more people in the jails, like, because they have a gulag system there as well. They have prison camps that are slave labor camps. So when they're running out of slaves, they arrest more people. These people haven't committed crimes. So there's another thing. Is it's like, okay, we're running out of test subjects. We're about to reach our 2 million. There's no sign of a cancer cure in sight. We need another 2 million. Oh well, arrest another 2 million people. You know what I mean? Like, none of this stuff exists in a vacuum, which is why it's never worth it if you do it that way, in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, like I said, I honestly do think that it's a case of moralistic values versus the idea of looking for the future. And the reason why I put it as that is, yeah, okay, 2 million people can die. We could initially make it the dregs or the worst of society that falls in the void, so to speak, or people that are already mentally ill in themselves. I'm not trying to say that people that are that way should do. I'm just trying to put it as a understanding or perspective to make it easier for the moralistic arguments to be swayed. To be able to cure something as bad as what cancer is, so to speak, would that be something that we would be able to understand? Would it be something that we could tolerate? Maybe not accept, but tolerate the reasoning behind it. If we could, as the old South African saying is, if you plant a tree without knowing that you're going to sit under it.
There's two problems with it. The first is there's never any guarantee it can be done. And the other thing is, again, no, it's not worth it, because you've coerced people, and nobody has the right to make the decision, let alone agree with the decision after the fact. Like, nobody has the right to do that in the first place. And I always use the example of the smallpox vaccine. That could have gone horrifically wrong when it was first made, but the guy was a good enough scientist to know to test it, how to test it, and to make sure there weren't human casualties, and thus the smallpox vaccine was born, and nobody had to be sacrificed to smallpox in order. You know what I mean? Like, He knew he wouldn't be allowed to just sacrifice people, so he did his science better. You know.
Sure. No, I completely understand. But all I was meaning with this idea of genetics, as in what's going on now, to be able to engineer specific genes as they have done with this, so supposedly with the HIV gene, so it's a case of it not being susceptible anymore. If there was a way of doing that with people, and maybe it's a case of the people themselves have actually decided to do this themselves, whatever people they are, doesn't matter who, what, where, or when. But would that not be worth the sacrifice, so to speak?
Well, no, because it's not just that you're sacrificing, and this is where Shirati should step in, because she mentioned the CRISPR molecule, and this is exactly why. So I'll let her take over.
My whole thing is, it seems like these scientists would more or less prey on the sick, more or less. I mean, the CRISPR molecule, like you were saying before, I will get into in a minute. But you guys were talking earlier. Sorry, coffee. You were talking about the smallpox vaccine. All those sick people. It seems like these sick people, they're in the hospital. They want to try and get better. So these scientists, these doctors, what have you, they come to these people and go, "Hey, I've got a potential fix for you. It's not a for sure thing, but it could potentially fix what ails you." So
that's fine. I mean, that's kind of what I was pushing for. The fact is that, say, for instance, when it comes to penicillin, so many people died with the fact of being able to even test penicillin and what was going on with it and everything else like that. The idea of treating polio and Black Death and black lung and so tuberculosis for such a long time and everything, until vaccines come along, the treatment in itself could be classified as inhumane, especially by today's standards. But yet, that's the way that we decided to treat people. The thing is that I'm trying to allude to more than anything, which I don't want to stick onto this story for too long, otherwise we'd miss the other ones. But can sometimes the ends justify the means? If you were able to cure cancers, then the idea of itself would then be that you'd be able to cure most genetically formed conditions and diseases.
Well, I know that right now in America, they are testing CRISPR and Cas9 in other mammals such as mice and in monkeys once they figure out certain things that work in mice.
Sure.
They're not immediately moving to monkeys because they know that it is too close to humans.
Sure.
But I don't remember because it was too far ago and my memory is absolutely terrible. But they figured out one disease in a monkey that they could fix. So they moved on to a monkey that had the same disease to try to fix it in him and found out that it did not work. So they had to find a different way around it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, go on.
I want to just hammer one last thing home and then address your point directly. So the first part is about the non-hypothetical, like the real world implications. So this is the thing.
Sure.
This is a CRISPR molecule. CRISPR molecules are viruses that are programmed to target a specific gene and kill that gene or cells containing that gene.
Sure.
Now, this is the Chinese Communist Party. This is not going to be about HIV. This is going to be about targeting an ethnicity or a weakness that they deem to be, it's proper Aryan racist Hitler type shit. Like, oh, we need to kill off all of the black people, or we need to kill off all the people under this height. You know, it's that sort of thing.
Sure.
So it's, and the thing is with a CRISPR virus, as Shirati said, it will go wherever the hell it likes. So even if you were to legitimately be getting rid of HIV, we don't know what else they've put in there at the time. You know, you're trusting them to send this thing into every cell in your body with potentially like a Trojan horse style purpose of, yeah, we're going to cure cancer, but we're also going to get rid of this entire ethnicity while we're at it, because that's why people are so scared of this technology. There's lots of different things you could do, and there's so much that could go wrong with it. To address your point, your hypothetical point, to use an old saying, and because you mentioned the trees earlier, it's fruit from the poison tree. It's if you make such a horrific decision for the greater good, usually, in everything I've ever seen of history, the ends don't justify the means. And what usually happens is humanity kind of goes, oh shit, never again, and finds a better way the next time. The Nuremberg trials being an example, when we found out the stuff that Dr. Mengele had been up to, and realized, no, medicine can never be conducted that way again. It never has been, except by China and other places like that. But it never has been respectably, certainly not in the West. And we've moved on, and our science and our medicine are better as a result, because we said we're never doing it like that again, even though he got results. And so, and you can't argue that medicine has leapt forward now more than it ever did under that system. So, and go back, look through history. It doesn't need to just be medical, but any time you sacrifice the means because of the ends you want to achieve, it's like it leaves this crack in the structure, and that weakness is always there. And no matter what the result, whether you achieve it or not, and you usually don't, but no matter what the result is, that there's always that, you know, that poisoned fruit, you know?
Yeah. No, I think both of you have made some extremely good points. I think my field of vision was quite narrowed by the aspects of maybe being able to cure things or subside things from humans in general, i.e., as I said before, cancers, HIV, whatever.
No, you were steel manning their case. You know, that's fair enough.
Well, no, I was kind of narrowing. I was trying to look further down the road of what might happen, what could happen. But instead of looking at what could or might happen, I needed to look at what was happening. And Shirati made an extremely important point to me anyway that basically changed my mind on this, which was the fact of, why are they experimenting genetics on humanity as it is now, when they can quite easily go through the actual process and ethical processes that are in place, which is mice, pigs, and then on to apes, and then eventually on to human trialists.
China has already gotten in trouble for testing
Twice.
on humans.
Yeah, twice.
Initially, I believe it was about 4 or 5 years ago, they got in trouble for testing on humans, like adult humans, before they started testing on babies.
Yeah, this has happened twice. This is the third sort of meeting. I don't know really what to call it, hearing meeting, that they're now having to be questioned about what's going on, and they basically admitted it all 3 times, especially again. It's quite amazing to me how, especially people like me, that I would say I was moralistic in some aspects, where I could quite easily drop a moral perspective for the idea of not granting forms of immortality, but granting forms of lengthening the mortality that we already have. And I think that's humanity in a nutshell, that we have our principles, we have our morality, and yes, I am human. So when my morality and principles can change is when I think myself that it could have been something that would have been for the better. And then thinking about it, it can then be changed. That's the reason why we have discourse. Some people's ideas are narrowed by prejudgment and prejudice, where in some cases you need to speak to other people to broaden your horizons. That's the reason why we have these type of streams.
Yeah, could I also say, like, I think that people try and separate the moral from the intellectual too often, because the thing is, they aren't mutually exclusive. There are people in the world who I would trust to successfully and ethically carry out this experiment. They exist. There are many, many brilliant people out there. But the problem is that once you allow this sort of thing, you can't unring that bell.
No, that's true.
And yeah, people go on, oh yeah, but people find a way to do it anyway in the shadows and illegally. And it's like, yes, illegally.
Yeah, exactly.
Very difficult to do and usually not worth the cost. And like look at the stuff that some of the times the American military get caught doing, and they have to actually stop it because they can't afford to keep it hidden anymore.
Sure.
Because it's illegal. Like, it does work. And so yes, there are people out there who could probably do this, but yeah, the moral argument is, well, the intellectual argument is, can it be done? Yes. Can it be done ethically? Yes. Okay, do it. But the moral argument then comes in and goes, yeah, but what about, the rest of the planet and the actual act? And what does that do to us as a species or us as a person? That's what the moral question is, and it's just as important as the intellectual question, because the thing is, people do get corrupted, and so does technology. And
definitely,
there are applications to this technology, but it's completely unprecedented. And as the chat are aptly pointing out, there are wild complications with this kind of technology, even if you do it with the best will in the world.
No, I completely and utterly agree with you. That's the reason why I was trying to state for the audience that I kind of changed my mind halfway through everything, simply because...
Yeah, and good for you, by the way.
Well, the thing is, I was kind of... Go on, Sharati.
No, there are plenty of people that actually do agree with this sort of stuff. I mean, my husband is one of the people that agree with transhumanism and genetic modifications to, I guess, have it be the only type of way for humanity to progress, evolve, I guess. Because
okay, let me be a little bit clearer. Let me be just a little bit clearer. I have changed my position on this specific story, not on the topic of transhumanism and not on the topic of forms of genetic modification, as long as it's done ethically.
Yeah, see, I'm completely against it all, and
yeah, which is fine. That's the reason why we have discourse. That's the reason why we have to have people with opposing views to be able to explain the reasons why different people's views can be wrong in other people's eyes and the reasons because of it. Because if we all agreed the same thing, it would be a really bad place. Because if everybody agreed with me, we'd probably already be dead because of what I just said about this story.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to deny it because it's all there for people to see. But that's the reason why I like doing these types of stories, because it's the thought process that gets changed. That's the reason why you have people on to talk to you about it. That's the reason why I don't like channels that do things by themselves, so to speak. It's one of the reasons why I actually like Mad Dodge's channel so much. Don't get me wrong, I don't like the disorganization or the format sometimes, but most of the time, because you have so many people that have so many different opposing views, different people's ideas get changed. And if the ideas on the panel don't get changed, the ideas of people that are watching can get changed. And I think we need more shows or more instances where we can show discourse happening. Sometimes it can get heated, sure, but that's the point of people expressing their point of view.
He doesn't do that anymore. And it saddens me. No, it really does. It saddens me.
That's fair enough. I mean, to be fair, I haven't really watched Mad Dodge for about a week. I pulled in there last night, and I think they were talking about planes, so I kind of left.
You are like the 5th person I have talked to this week who says they don't watch Dodge anymore.
I just haven't watched some of the stuff that he's put up. I watched the beginning of it, and I just haven't enjoyed the topic, so I moved on.
You're just OCD. You can't handle the show format. It just troubles you so deeply.
Well, there is that. I definitely do like structure in the format. Can't you tell by the structure that I have here? But no, I do like structure in the format. But that never really stopped me from watching Mad Dodge. The thing is, I have to be interested in the topics to watch. I mean, I'm like that with The Amazing Atheist or with Sargon. If I don't like the fucking topics, I won't bloody watch it.
Sargon's so fucking boring, and his voice is so
Yes.
monotone.
Yeah, see, he's not doing himself any favors whatsoever.
Shirati, you're just a racist.
Oh my god.
It's that simple. So,
Oh
God.
my god. Please don't.
To be fair, I thought somebody else literally come into the room then. I was like, how did you get this link?
He's pirating your stream.
Please don't.
To be fair, though, that's the point. If I don't like the topics, I don't watch. It has nothing to do with personalities or anything else like that.
I really like that topic we just did because it's like I think that stories like that are important because
yes,
the news tries to simplify everything, and I love to have these quite simple hypothetical discussions. But I also like to be able to think to myself and to talk with other people about how the news story isn't necessarily the news story. There's something happening behind the story. In this case,
exactly.
Fucking genocide. Like that's the real story here.
Yeah.
But you can move on to that hypothetical as well. But I think people try and focus on that too much.
Sure. Right. Before we move on, I know you've got one last bit to say. So when I finish, just carry on. After Crumple Points finishes last point, do either of you have anything else to say regarding the story? Because otherwise, I'd like to move on because the next story is one that I really want to get into because I find it funny as fuck. So carry on, please, if you want to.
By all means, carry on.
Just people if you could please look up the channel China Uncensored. It's a really great channel, and if not that, then just Google the extermination of the Uyghur people in China, in Xinjiang. It's absolutely horrendous, and more people need to know about it. And that's me done.
No, that's fair enough. Good little plug there. I don't know, it's not your channel, so it's actually a channel that he watches that provides him with some good information. And if Crumple Point likes that channel, then I would say if you can, put the link in the live chat so people can go and have a look at it.
I shall.
No problem. So I'm sure people have had a look at what I've put down as these stories. But the second story is something that I'm absolutely found funny, which is Super Spoofer. Professor uses feminist buzzwords to get entire passage from Hitler's Mein Kampf published in an academic journal. So in other words, before we go any further, instead of him saying eugenics or white race or German race or things like that, he changed all of the bad words into feminist buzzwords, and it got published.
Huh?
Yeah. They published it as a feminist academic journal as well.
Yeah, I'll let you go through the article because I was just
please
brushing up on all this earlier today. I actually messaged the guys involved on Twitter about this. I got a reply from one of them just saying, thanks for the support, but it's quite funny you were covering this today because I just messaged the guy.
Hey, so Beta Hossan or whatever his name is, and his colleagues said that they were stunned by how easily the joke papers were published in what he described as grievance studies. So a professor is facing a sack after using feminist buzzwords to get an entire passage from Hitler's Mein Kampf published in an academic journal. Peter helped create a series of spoof academic papers to satirize a number of fields, including what he described as the grievances studies, including fields on gender, obesity, and homosexuality. So just get a little idea of this. He's actually doing not fake studies, but joke studies that he's providing data for and things like that to get published. And they publish them under the guise that it was for feminism. And he's done this quite a few times as well, to be fair, as is set up there.
Yeah,
have you figured him out yet?
Sorry?
And they haven't figured him out yet?
No, because he's a really high professor in quite a good school as well. And
Well, it was
it's all
him and a
peer
guy
reviewed.
called James
Go on.
Lindsay that did it.
Yes.
And James Lindsay is not a professional academic. Like, he writes books, but he isn't a professional teacher. Whereas Peter Boghossian is actually a lecturer at the University of Portland. So now what they're doing is they are sanctioning him for data fabrication. Now, bearing in mind, this is why it's quite funny, because all these stories are kind of lining up. Data fabrication is to prevent things like Dr. Mengele type stuff happening, like we were just talking about.
Yep.
Conducting illegal experiments and then pretending that you did it legally. That's data fabrication. So they're trying to say that, for example, one paper that they did, they were saying about how heterosexual dogs are less likely to be broken up when raping another dog or something like that. And claimed to examine 10,000 dogs.
Yes, and they examined all of the genitals for that specific thing, and that was the actual data that they used for it.
Yeah, exactly. And now this is the thing: they didn't actually present any data. They actually wrote to the journal saying, we didn't have any data, we burned it, and they said, oh no, that's fine, we'll publish it anyway. So they're saying that they're trying to get him done for data fabrication when, as a legal get out clause, aside from the fact this is a satire, so it's protected under free speech, or should be. It's a satire, but they also told the people there was no data and that the data was basically forged, and they still published it. So there is no reason. This is a purely politically motivated thing. But the story is that he wrote Mein Kampf in the style of a feminist and got it published, and it got an award.
It did. It actually did as well. But to go on to your point and what they should be pointing out as well, which I'm sure that they have been in some aspects. The thing is, these journals are peer reviewed. They're not just given to people to go, here's my paper, it's done, and then published. It's not self-publishing. They're peer-reviewed papers, meaning that they're supposed to be checking on the data and corroborating the data themselves before they publish it. But because it's politically motivated, as in the people doing the peer review, they didn't, as Crumple Point just said, check any of the data and in actual fact forced it through. So the onus is on them for not using the peer review service properly rather than using their political might to publish what they wanted. Do you have anything to say on this at all, Sharati, apart from bewilderment and shock? Yeah, I thought so.
I'm reading through the goddamn thing and I can't stop laughing. Oh my god. It's
Right, let me catch up for everybody else then. Let me catch up for everybody else.
Oh my god.
The assistant philosophy professor at Portland State University in Oregon penned a total of 20 intentionally broken and nonsense papers with the help of 2 collaborators. Each of one was deliberately ridiculous. I think that's supposed to say each and every one, but whatever. But astonishingly, 7 were accepted by peer-reviewed journals. The Times reports with a hyperlink there. So if you wanted to go and read what ones were reported or peer-reviewed, you can go to the Times and you can have a look at them yourselves. We don't have the time to do that today, but it is there in the link down below if you want to do that. So 1, our struggle is my struggle. That sounds interesting, doesn't it? Our struggle is my struggle. I wonder what book that's from. I just don't know. I suppose I better read on, shouldn't I? Solidarity, Feminism as an intersectional reply to neoliberal and choice feminism was a rewrite of chapter 12 of Hitler's 1925 autobiography with feminist buzzwords switched in. Interesting. Very interesting how the words of Hitler have struck chords with the feminist. I don't even know what to call them at this moment in time. Stupid people would be a fucking blow to stupid people.
Oh, no, I told a leftist feminist earlier today that all women, including myself, are evil, vindictive, conniving, manipulative bitches who use
Yep.
their bodies to get what they want.
Damn straight.
Did she have an aneurysm there and then, Shirati, or was it later?
She hasn't responded.
Yeah,
Oh,
she
so
won't.
had
She
one
won't do. And if she does, she'll be on the description. Maybe some do, but I don't. But my boyfriend's taking me out tonight, and I've got to wear my nice red dress. Otherwise, he won't buy me that wine or bag that I want to go with my outfit.
I've had that opinion about women since, God, I was old enough to use my brain.
Oh, I just find this absolutely funny, which is the main reason why I wanted to cover this story.
Can I
Because-
tell you one of the other papers they did, if you think this is funny? One of the other papers they did was that they claimed to have found that by research, if they could convince straight males to use dildos on their bums, then within 6 months they could improve their attitude towards homosexuals.
I think that this is actually that they actually use this as a study at the bottom. Let me quickly just read through this, and we'll just go through. We'll see if we can go through some of them. So all the spoofs featured very shoddy methodologies, including incredibly implausible statistics, as well as ideologically motivated. Fuck me.
Analyses and claims not.
No, I can read
warranted
analyses. I
by
can't read
data.
the quality or qualitative or whatever it fucking is.
Qualitative?
Qualitative, that'll do. And claims not warranted by the data. Because you can tell I'm an academic, I can't even fucking read. So, yeah, Mein Kampf, fuck that book. So, further bizarre passages include one published under fake name Helen Wilson in the journal Gender, Place and Culture, owned by Taylor and Francis, the British publisher. This was supposedly an investigation of the rape-condoning species of hegemonic. Got there. Masculinity, and had involved examining 10,000 dogs' genitals, as Crumple Point suggested beforehand, in public dog walking parks. The paper suggested that men should be trained like canines to prevent rape culture.
Ooh. Sounds like BDSM.
Well, this is the thing, right? Somebody in the chat, Bill Whitaker, is saying like peer reviewing is an academic circle jerk, and that's true. But that's why this work was done, was because
to prove
they were trying to demonstrate that no due diligence is done in the academic world anymore in these grievance studies, because you physically couldn't have done this experiment. They said in 1 year at one park, they found 10,000 dogs and examined all of them by going, I think they said it was an hour a week as well.
Yeah.
That's mathematically not possible to do, or very improbable. And any nonce would know that. The name was fake, so they didn't bother to Google the name Helen Wilson and see if this person was a genuine academic. You know, like, this was the whole point. So this is why Peter Boghossian's in trouble, though, because he's not been done for the data fabrication yet. But what he has been done with is I can't remember the name of it, but some kind of ethics charge. And what the weaselly bastards did to
research misconduct, apparently.
Research misconduct, that was it. What they said was they've gone full Soviet on him, and they've said, yes, we know that the papers didn't involve any research, but we're going to look at it as if the people you sent the papers to are test subjects, and you didn't tell them that they were test subjects.
Even though it's completely not fabricated, not true, and even the people that were supposedly conducting the experiments, which didn't happen, were fake people conducting the experiments.
Well, that's the thing, is this is exactly it, because it was a satire. The whole thing only works if people find out it's a joke.
Yes.
You know? And so what his university are trying to argue, and have successfully argued, is that it's the editors of these magazines are actually test subjects of Peter Boghossian's.
Yeah.
Which is completely batshit crazy, but this is the kind of weird linguistic trickery that these people use to get around everything. I mean, these are the people that invented the term white privilege, for God's sake, so what else do you expect?
Exactly. And actually believe that it is suspicious that men rarely anally self-penetrate using sex toys, and that this is probably due to fear of being thought homosexual. And they
Some of
actually believe shit
hysteria.
like that.
Wow.
Yep, they actually believe shit like that as well. I mean, people can read the actual paper and everything else of that, and it's on his Twitter as well. And this is a layer of support from Richard Dawkins. Obviously, most people that know anything about science know who he is. Just don't ask him about his views on Brexit. On that, he's a cunt.
Someone you think is a cunt? Wow.
I think lots of people. I think lots of people are cunts. But I said his views on Brexit make him a cunt. Dr. Bogosi and his colleagues said that they were stunned by how easily the joke papers were published. We wanted to see if these disciplines that we called grievance studies are comprised by political activism that allows for the laundering of prejudice and opinions into something that gets treated as knowledge, he said. World-renowned scientist and atheist. I don't know why you have to put atheist in there. If he's a scientist, then he's probably going to... Anyway, whatever. Richard Dawkins was one of the number of leading academics to write to the university in support of Peter, that'll do, saying that his first response to the brilliant hoax was to let out of how incredulous mirth. That'll do. Okay, anyway. I can't really speak. My English is shit. Do your humorless colleagues who brought this action want Portland State to become the laughing stock of the academic world? He wrote.
Apparently.
Well, no, it's even worse because it's exactly what CompoPoint has been saying all the way along. It's not just the fact that they accepted the papers, because that's on them. That's their fault. Their peer review system is shit and shoddy. But now, because they have been exposed, they are doing what most people would say is dabbling down. They're not taking their lick, so to speak. They're now going, well, no, we know we're right. We know that we're so embedded in our dogma that you must have done something wrong, or we're going to find out and prove you did, even though they didn't.
Yeah, well, Portland already is the laughing stock of not the academic world, but the world. I mean,
oh yeah,
this is interesting as well because, as you know, I'm involved with the whole comics upheaval just now, and this is originating out of what a lot of people are laughingly calling the Portland Mafia, which is basically, you know, it's like a social justice protection racket where all these graduates from Portland are in infiltrating publishing,
yes,
and getting kind of jobs for the boys, as it were. Other genders are available, and it's a complete protection racket. And so it's not just a case of like SGWs not being able to take a joke. It's like they have serious influence and in some cases money, usually not, but mainly influence, to lose in this process. And they've been given a serious black eye by this lot. And it's because it's a satire. This is the genius of it. Because it's a satire, anyone in the general public, this is why it's in the Sun, can look at this and go, oh, I get it now. Like, it's difficult to listen to somebody like, I don't know, Sam
Harris. Do you think this would have been in The Guardian?
Oh, no chance.
Because surely The Guardian, the bastion of knowledge, the bastion of making sure that scientific studies are published, would publish something that absolutely tears down their rhetoric. Surely that would be the reason why they would publish something like this. But
of course,
the one thing that I really find extremely funny about this story is the fact that the people that have now been found out that they are basically politicizing everything that they are doing are still doing exactly what they are being accused of. Politicizing this to say that they are the ones that are being victimized, so to speak, and they are going to defend themselves by saying that he's done something wrong and he's done this on purpose. Yeah, it's called satire, and he was proving that you're a dishonest hack. Welcome to the real world. Get over it. I think that's interesting. Well, does anybody else have anything else to say on this story whatsoever?
I think it's funny as hell.
Me too. To be fair, What about you, Mr. Point?
Yeah, well, just a couple of general comments, but I wanted to bring up the fact that the one where putting things up your butt makes you less homophobic. That study that was hailed as, and I will try my best to quote it, a gift to knowledge itself. I believe they called it, that study. The peer review people that reviewed it, they said that study was a gift to knowledge.
It was definitely a gift to knowledge, or a gift, depending in what region you're in.
I don't want to see a GIF of that study.
It would be interesting.
Well, I'm sure a few of the Discords I'm in will have them. But yeah, no, it's just, this is unbelievable. These people don't stay in university forever. They come out and they get jobs, and they aren't good at life, so they get jobs in things like human resources or politics or, not law enforcement, but desk jobs in law enforcement, lawmaking,
or politics.
Yeah, so they come out of these institutions and they go places and they seek influence at any cost, no matter what they have to do, and then they bring them down from the inside. So
yep,
everybody should take note of this, and you should share this with everybody you know, because the fact that it's funny makes it instantly accessible to anyone. Exactly. You don't have to understand the peer review system or any of that shit. You just know the entire academic world said that the dog genital rape study was genius, and that the sticking turnips up your bum can make you less homophobic. That was a gift to knowledge itself, and that's what academics think. And instantly, they don't need to understand how these systems work, because that's so silly on its own. And then you tell them, yeah, and that guy's going to get fired for doing this.
Yeah.
And they'll immediately be on his side, as they should be. And that's the brilliance of comedy. And that's why comedy is so important in the West.
Yeah. I know, I completely agree with you. That's the reason why, my personal opinion on it, when they had Spit in Image on, for instance, the politicians knew that whatever they did was going to be taking the piss out of them next week. So what did they do? They behaved. Where because we don't have, or they behaved better-ish, or at least behind closed doors. Let's put it that way. Now they don't have anything like that, at least in our country, in the UK. They don't have anything like that at all. And the politicians themselves are running rampant. And just to quickly jump on what you said before, where you were talking about these people that are doing the peer reviews, some of them, in fact, around 50 to 60% of them, it's probably more, but I'm being conservative on the estimate, actually stick into academics and actually become your teachers, actually become your professors, your lecturers. And these are people that believe and will publicize and politicize fake studies to prove their own points. And these people are the ones that are teaching our children. And yet we say that the government is the one that is fucking up our education system. When in actual fact, it's these people that don't even know how a peer review study is supposed to be conducted. That's the most shocking thing, that these people are in the peer review and are doing the peer reviews and don't know how to conduct it. Or if they do, are misconducting and are actually just pushing through their own political agendas, which in itself proves that they would do that if they were teaching, and they do that when they are teaching. And yes, I said do.
This is why I agree or disagree with a lot of the people on the so-called intellectual dark web, though, because they're trying to come up with all these reasons of, oh, how can this be happening? And they come up with good reasons, but they ignore the elephant in the room, which is
the obvious
throwback to communism. This is a political, deliberate thing that was put in place decades ago to destroy the West. The Soviet Union didn't know that they were going to go tits up in 1991. They were preparing. They were busy. They were infiltrating our education systems in the 60s and 70s, and this is the result. And nobody seems to want to talk about this except fucking Alex Jones. And I'm damned if I'm going to quote him and expect people not to laugh at me for it. So we need these people on the intellectual dark web to actually just take their balls in their hand and actually say, yeah, it's communism. Like, because that is exactly what it is. And you can go and read the stuff that Putin and the Kremlin recently declassified KGB documents from the 70s, saying this is what they're going to do. There's a KGB agent called Nekrasov who said he used to work for the KGB and flipped and came over to America, and he said this is how they. He said that they basically the KGB practically invented MTV, because they wanted to fry people's brains, and so it's not magic. It's not just a strange thing that nobody could have foreseen. There was a blueprint for it, and it's creeping communism, and so yeah, tinfoil hats off now. But I just needed to.
Oh no, tinfoil hats are coming straight back on because Facebook employs UK fact checkers to combat fake news. I thought it was a perfect segue what you were doing, so I thought we'd just move straight on to the next story. So just on the headline alone, what do we think about that? That Facebook is going to employ or has employed UK fact checkers to combat fake news?
I think since the story that I heard the other day about police officers actually arresting a man in the United States for supposedly bad-mouthing them, this is a bad thing for you.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. What do you think on this point before I give a tirade and fucking shout?
I'm kind of disgusted, but only mildly, because Facebook's usage is down 30% in the last 2 years. So I'm really not fucking worried about. The only way Facebook's going to survive as a company is if they go back to being like a social media for you and your close group of friends. If they keep trying to be the internet, they're just going to implode. So like I say, yeah, go for it. Kick everybody else off of Facebook and watch what happens. But the moral of it is fucking disgusting, obviously.
Well, before I go too far into it, let's, for instance, use a massively hypothetical in the sense of it. Obviously, we all know Count Dankula. Obviously, we all know that he was actually arrested for what was it, offensive mailing or causing offense in mail or something, some stupid fucking arcane law. And because that he was then took to their version of a trial, a sheriff's court, the judge then said that we're going to take the context away from what you are saying you said, and we are going to imply the context in which we think that you said something to be able to say that he was guilty of that action. So if somebody was to do a story and was to actually provide you with the actual facts that are provided on the internet that is different to the mainstream news, which one will get classified as fake news and which one will get provided as the real news? Even though one is actually based in pure fact and the other is politicized.
We all know context doesn't matter anymore, so it really wouldn't matter. They could take and cut and paste something and make it look real. Whatever
you mean like they do on every article from the BuzzFeed and from Reuters all the way through to the BBC?
Well, they could take what is written right there on the screen and cut and paste UK fact checkers to combat and make it say Facebook employs fake news.
Mm-hmm.
If that's on there,
Facebook can
go, oh, you said, or the BBC said this about Facebook. That's not okay.
Fine. I was more trying to say that people that are actually providing facts would be the case of, like, say, for instance, small independent, say, for instance, like me, I reported on what happened to, or somebody like Sargon, let's use him, for instance, that reported on Count Dankula. And because they provided all the facts, the links to the facts, which is now also being taxed and actually making it very hard for people like me to provide links anymore once it comes into effect, then they are also providing these UK fact checkers that will go, no, that's not what happened, because the mainstream news media are actually suggesting that it happened this way. All I'm saying is that this is literally going to stop the internet from being able to provide alternative news. Now, it doesn't mean about bloody conspiracy theories for people that want to go down that road, which personally I think, fuck it, just do what you want. It's up to you if you want to put a story up like that. Just make sure you provide links. But this stops people doing alternative news to what is actually going on. This stops people actually providing you the actual news. Stopping people from being able to provide. Go on.
I do have a question for, well, both of you actually. You're only allowed to visit certain sites, whereas here in America, we're allowed to visit a lot more. Are you allowed to go to Gab?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But that's the thing that I'm trying to get across to everybody. That these, say for instance, the feminist stories that we all love to hate, so to speak, or hate to love, or whatever way you want to put it. But people like Sargon and all the rest of them that make it all funny and fun and games and everything and pointing out the laughter and everything, we won't be able to do that on Facebook anymore because they will say that's fake news. Because they will go, well, that's not how the facts are, because our peer-reviewed studies have proven this to be false.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, so I'm not really going to just say it again, but I wanted to kind of come at this from a different angle, which was that these sorts of stories are they're like a message to the party faithful that everything will be okay, because you've got the people on the extreme left, and then you've got the people who are, let's just say, red pilled, for a want of a better term, which is still quite a small number. The general population are still largely ignorant of all this stuff because it's mainly happening on the internet. Most people in the general public don't even watch the mainstream news because they know it's a load of bollocks. And even those that do watch it will generally sit through it and watch it and say that's a load of bollocks all the way through. So the thing is that this is a message from the far left to the far left to say it's okay, we're handling it, because the people like us who read this go and we read that headline as Facebook are employing UK fact checkers to ban news, because when we see the term fake news, we know it's what they mean is news, because it's like, it's backwards. The mainstream news is the fake news, and the fake news is usually the actual news. And so that we know that this is a load of shit, and they're just clamping down on free speech as always. The woke people are just viewing this and going, "Yay, it's going to be fine," and the general public are like, "Fake news, what's that?" Like, so it's completely like, while it's draconian and kind of sad that people go to these sorts of lengths, I'm not worried about it, especially given Facebook's declining traffic. I think the more that it's like the harder they grip, the more it'll slip through their fingers.
Yeah, no, I completely not agree with you. I mean, if anybody, excuse me, if anybody that is left-leaning or left in general that is watching this stream, because I know predominantly most people that watch my stream are normally right-leaning or centrist in general, or right-center or whatever. But if you want any sort of, well, generally for him, yeah. But if you want sort of explanation of what we would call fake news, if you have a look, and no, not on every news article, and no, not everything. If you look at CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and all the other alphabet soups that are out there, especially in the US, most people have to fact check those news sources because most of them are not providing proper evidence. And if they do, they're not providing context for what they're actually using. In other words, they are making news, not reporting news. For people that don't understand the difference is you don't try to influence the news to a narrative that you want. You report what's happening. And that's what journalists used to do. They don't anymore.
They don't report anyway. Well, like you said, they influence, they use their emotion.
No, I completely agree with you.
It doesn't even really bear, like, it's this weird game that I don't. It becomes more and more absurd the further away you get from it, because on the one hand you've got, like, let's just use BBC News. So you look at their stuff and go, "This is all false. I can disprove it," and then you go, "Wait, hang on. This isn't just false. This is entirely made up. Like, it's not even a case of I can prove that this fact has been twisted. It's like this never happened. You're just talking at me." Yes. And then you realize, wait, how do they even select their stories? Because so much happened in the world today. Why are you picking this to tell us about? Especially when we know that you're not actually telling us about a real event. The whole thing's fiction anyway. So you're like, it's like 4 times divorced from reality. Because it's like, okay, you could have reported on anything in the world, but you reported on this bombing in some part of the world. Why?
Oh, that's going to be stopped. Let me just read a couple of quotations from this so people can understand the actual language that's being used. So one of the first quotations that's being used is, Facebook said it is working continuously to reduce the spread of misinformation. Sarah Brown, training and news literacy manager at Facebook, said, people don't want to see false news on Facebook, and nor do we. We're delighted, blah, 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 and full facts and whatnot. So now we'll move a little bit down and see what you would actually be checking on, shall we? It will be checking images, videos, and articles presented as fact-based reporting. Other content, such as satire and opinion, will be exempt. Will it, though? Will it? If something is found to be fake, it will appear lower in the newsfeed, but will not be deleted. So in other words, literally, this is them saying this, that if we don't like the news that you're reporting, as in, I don't know, let's say right wing against feminism as an easy example for everyone to understand, or the idea of terrorist attacks, that will get lowered down so you don't understand what that news is. And if you think that I'm overstepping my mark on this, let me read the next paragraph. It will be tackling everything from dangerous cancer cures to false stories spreading after terrorist attacks.
Oh, that's good. That means the BBC will shut itself down. Excellent.
Oh, no, only on the internet. Only on the internet. And Channel 4 will still be going, because let's be honest, Channel 4 just keeps on going. I don't even know how Channel 4 gets its funding.
Well, there's the thing, isn't it? It's interesting.
I do. It's part of the licensing fee. I do. It's part of the licensing taxation fee now.
Oh, right. Well, but yeah, oh, yes, because now they're no longer exempt from certain rules that the BBC, the impartiality rules. I remember this.
Yeah, it's 2015 it all changed.
The
surprisingly, after somebody took it to court, surprisingly, after somebody got over 100,000 signatures to be able to talk about the BBC as a tax, as in taxation, and then it turned into a license fee, and was talking about abolishing the license fee. It then got turned into, that day when it was supposed to be talked about, that day, into a taxation that needed to occur. So they changed it on purpose from a licensing fee to a taxation because somebody brought it to Parliament to be discussed.
Yeah, but they still call it the license fee, even though it's a tax.
Very much so, yes.
Which is funny.
It is funny.
But this is the thing, it's like, it's just about wordplay with these a lot. You saw that with the Peter Boghossian and what's his name? James Lindsay. There was a woman that helped them out. I've forgotten her name. Anyway, so there was a ridiculous thing that happened where somebody, was it Snopes, was going through the election debates when Donald Trump was on, and they were like fact checking him. And
it was the worst fact checking that ever fucking happened because the fact checkers had to be fact checked.
They were just making shit up, and then, but they call themselves a fact checking site, and there's no legal thing where you can do them for false advertising or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
Because
it's just forced on the way that they perceived it. They didn't have the information at hand.
How do you legally enforce a fact? You can't, because facts change all the time. So rightly, there's no such law saying that if you claim something's a fact, you're going to get prosecuted if it's found to not be a fact. That's a good thing. But what I mean is, these people think, oh, we've got a fact-checking site, and they think that this is some kind of like, they think that it's, Neil deGrasse Tyson, David Attenborough, and Nigel Farage sitting in a room discussing among themselves what is a fact and then coming up with an impartial decision. No, it's the same people that run the news site, except they're also in a think tank that is paid for by the same people who run the news site to reinforce what the news site is saying. Like, it's just this bizarre circle jerk of misinformation.
No, I completely not agree. I was just having a quick read through certain other bits and pieces. This isn't a magic pill. Fact checking is slow, careful, pretty and glamorous work if you do it correctly. And realistically, we know we can't possibly review all the potential false claims, just the ones on the right, that appear on Facebook every day. But it is a step in the left direction. Over 65 is more likely to share fake news on Facebook. Really? Or is it more likely to share news that they actually agree with because they've lived their experiences, as you left people would like to say? The godfather of fake news, debunking fake news in Nigeria, and MP's fury over Mark Zuckerberg's no-show. Well, he did no-show in the UK. He refused to be questioned by Parliament.
And he still looks like a lizard man.
No, but it's just the fact that they said, oh, MP's fury over Mark Zuckerberg. Specifically, the US doesn't have MPs. So it's specifically targeting the news story that was to do with Mark Zuckerberg not showing up to the UK. That's true. He didn't show up until he was subpoenaed. Well, until he was advised by his lawyer to actually attend.
Just seeing as we're going on about facts, here's a fun fact. Mark Zuckerberg is the chairman of the Xi Jinping fan club in America. Xi Jinping being obviously the leader of the Chinese Communist Party. So that's rather terrifying.
Ah, that would be why near the top of this.
Morgan! Sorry.
It's all right. It's just children. It's not a problem. Honestly, it's not as bad as Mad Dodge, so it's fine. When we get that bad, then we'll say something. No, but yeah, no, you're completely and utterly correct. It's amazing that Facebook is now turning to rating posts. Yeah, sorry, that's what I was looking for. When it said that they were going to lower the posts, it's not going to delete them. It's just going to hide them. Sounds familiar to a Pacific social media platform that's used in China to be able to rate your social media performance and give you points for being a good citizen and reporting the good news. But yeah, whatever. Does anybody else have anything to say on this? I'm going to quickly have a look at the chat. So if the chat wanted to quickly make any points to me before we move on, then please do. As well as obviously you two.
I just think that it's more of the same. They're not going to learn. And I just wanted to also share that I was looking for, this is why I use DuckDuckGo now. I quickly checked on Google for speed the thing about Mark Zuckerberg being head of the Xi Jinping Fan Appreciation Society, and I can't find a single thing. All that's coming up is fan art of Mark Zuckerberg, because Google have clearly scrubbed that search term, so that's quite interesting. But yeah, you'll need to go on DuckDuckGo if you want to have that proven to you. There's plenty of pictures of them shaking hands and trading pleasantries, and we know that he was over there constructing a Chinese censor-friendly version of Facebook. This is the thing. I'll be quick, don't worry. When people go on about like doing trade deals with dictatorships, and they say, "Oh, well, we'll just, it's okay if we get the economic growth, then the morals will come later." No, it doesn't work like that. Here's what happens: Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, and Jack, whatever the fuck his name is of Twitter, Dorsey. Everybody in America and Britain and the West are fine to be mates with China because they get cheap shit. And nobody, whenever human rights abuses are talked about, people go on about, the slave camps and what we were talking about at the start of the show, and it's all waved away by the politicians as, oh yes, but we need to make the country more prosperous, and then they'll become more liberalized, right?
Yes.
No, here's what happens. Those three guys go over there and they construct a communist-friendly version of their own sites, the software and the hardware. And then they come back knowing that it works and start implementing it over here to turn us into a dictatorship, but not of the presidency or the prime ministership, but of the corporations.
Yeah, no, completely not agree with this. If anybody wants any sort of evidence towards what Crumple Point is saying, there is a company out in the Philippines. I did a video on it, which is Google admitting to actually causing censorship out there and actually going for the points of enforcing blasphemy laws via the app. So you can report people for blasphemy. And then through that app, the government will take action on those people that have been reported. And Google themselves in that area has decided that they are going to implement and run that app. So if anybody thinks that Google or Facebook are going to have any sort of moral obligation not to bring it to the West, nah, they're going to. They're going to. If they can get away with it, they're going to. By the way, if anybody else wants anything else to do on that story, the link for that story is in the link down below, in the description box down below. But if you want to carry on the little segue, which is Google and censorship, Google backed on limiting search results over right to be forgotten. Now, I'm sure that nobody can see exactly what I'm doing at this moment in time because I am having a Sargon Boomer moment at this moment in time and forgot to actually show you what I was looking at. But now that we can actually see what we are looking at, we will go back to reading what we were looking at. So as you probably all heard, Google backed on limiting search results over right to be forgotten. Now, everybody might be thinking at this moment in time, what the fuck does that mean? Well, let's have a look what right is to be forgotten. What is the right to be forgotten? Shall we have a look? So as you can see there, this is another story that happened in 2014. Yes, it took 4 years for this to be implemented and go through legal process, which we'll get to which court decided that this was a good idea. And I'll give you a clue. It's a European one. 16 years ago, a Spaniard named Mario Castella Gonzalez had hit financial difficulties. And basically, to solve these, he ended up selling his house through auction because he split up with his wife. Now, in that process, a couple of years afterwards, I think it was in 1998, all the troubles happened. But then afterwards, when he wanted to move on, it turned out that every time that his name was searched on Google or whatever on the internet, that auction would always come up. So because that come up, on Tuesday, the Luxembourg-based Court of Justice of the European Union agreed with him, and in doing so set a major precedent over what is referred to as a right to be forgotten. As in, whenever you search for his name, as I just said, news about the auction still features prominently, he urged that this continue to damage his reputation. So even though it was news, even though it was true, and even though it wasn't really affecting him apart from when people searched his name and found out that he had financial difficulties and possibly the reasons for that, the European Court of Justice decided that means that you can then delete that newsworthy history because it affects the purpose of that person. So now you kind of understand what it is. If anybody wants to read through this a bit more, then there is linked in the description box below, so please go and have a read of that. But now we understand where the right to be forgotten comes from, as in, I've got a bad story about me and I want it to disappear, how much to get rid of it. is now coming back to this, which is now a senior advisor to the European Court of Justice, surprise, surprise, has backed Google's legal bid to limit individuals' right to be forgotten. Sounds good at that point, doesn't it? Sounds good that it's a right to be limited. It sounds good. That's read on. To searches in Europe, Google sought to limit the law's scope after France asked for it to be extended. Again, sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds absolutely great that they're going to limit it. They're not going to expand it. Good, isn't it? The law lets people ask Google to remove information deemed inaccurate, inadequate, irrelevant, or excessive from its search engine. The ECJ rulings typically follow the advisor's decision. So even though that they've said that they are not going to extend it, they are not changing it. And typically, if you ask for something to be removed, it will be, if you've got enough money. So, censorship ad. The court is scheduled to make a decision about which nations were subject to the right later in 2019. In other words, the right to be forgotten. And this is going to be implemented throughout the whole of the European Union from 2019 this year. In his official statement, Advocate General, interesting, Marcia Spiziana, sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, I'm not very good at foreign names, as people have probably guessed by now, said searches carried out in nations outside the EU should not be affected, but we would like it to be. The fundamental right to be forgotten must be balanced against the fundamental rights, such as the right to data protection and the right to privacy, as well as the legitimate public interest in accessing the information sought, he said. Sounds great, still, doesn't it? That they put that in there. But they're still not changing the law, and they're going to actually run this law out for the rest of the European Union. And Google is the ones that were pushing this and actually won their court case for it. That if you say something bad, let's for instance say George Soros, if he wanted to get the information about him selling out his family, selling out all of the people that were in Germany that were Jews because he didn't want to die, and he said to Google, I don't want that to be publicized anymore because it shows me in a bad light and it was years ago, then he can get that deleted. What do you guys think on that? Because I've been on a little rant for a little bit. What do you guys think on this?
I think somebody's already got stories like that saved, and they will be put back up. Whether they're put back up on Google or some other site, they will be put back up.
Yeah, I think Kiwi Farms is going to be making a lot of business soon.
Yeah,
What about
I mean,
you?
this is what they always do, isn't it? Like, they always call it, you know, I don't know, Margaret's Law or something like that. They put a human face on it. They go, look at this poor bastard that's had an absolute shit time of it. We're going to bring in Skynet or, you know, a gulag. But don't mind that part. Just concentrate on this genuinely sad story first. And it's a load of bullshit. Like, everybody knows for a start that Google and the rest of them stockpile this data, that they sell it to anybody who wants it, that they send it to any defense agency that wants it. I mean, this is why all these Islamic terrorists are always on MI6 watch lists, because MI6 are like, well, could we get a copy of all the people that have selected, you know, how to make a bomb in the last year? They're like, yeah, sure, take it. So the privacy things are completely load of bollocks. This is exactly what it's like, is what Common Sense Guy said, which is, it's if your name is, you know, Tommy Robinson, or, well, the Common Sense Guy for that matter, and you hang up your YouTube cape and you don't want people to bother you again, you're still going to come up in Google searches, unless you're trying to promote your page, of course.
Yeah.
If your name is Rupert Murdoch, or, you know, George Soros, or somebody like that, then yes, you'll be quietly forgotten and allowed your privacy. That'll be fine. So when people go, oh no, yeah, Leveson inquiry, they were doing phone hacking, I'll show you. Oh, I can't find it anymore. That search result doesn't exist. How strange. It must not have happened. That's what this is really about.
No, I completely and totally agree with you. And if people don't want to believe that it's only just for individuals, let me put it this way. What would happen if somebody like Apple, and I use somebody as a conglomerative term for the corporation, decided that they didn't want you to know that so many people used to commit suicide due to their horrendous working conditions? And they went, well, it makes us look really bad. And it happened a couple of years ago now. And, we've changed. So, it's affecting our business. Can we get rid of it? Oh, well, that's a corporation that's now decided to get rid of their own history. How far does that go back? Can countries then decide that they're going to change Wikipedia or change what Google search histories come up for their own history? How far does it go back? And how does it affect different people to different countries to different companies? When does it stop and when does it differentiate? That's the problem I have with laws that do this. And again, it's been done by the European Court of Justice that has accepted that getting rid of history is a good thing, whether you think it's good or bad or it's affecting the person or not. It's the same thing as if you're over 18 in the UK. I don't know what it's like in the US, that if you commit a crime, it stays on your record. The reason for that is to let people know that you have done something bad in the past. That doesn't mean that it stops you or should be discriminatory against you for getting the job, but it's to let them know what your character is. And that should be the same thing for companies, should be the same thing for countries, and by God, it should be the same thing for rich people that can afford to have their name scrubbed from Google.
Well, like the old saying goes, if you don't learn from your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. The thing is, how do you take the present? You destroy the past. How do you control the future? You destroy the past.
Like I said earlier, I am damn sure people will be saving this quote unquote deleted history and selling it off to the highest bidder.
No, it's like I said, I bet places and websites like Kiwi Farms, they're going to be behind a paywall at some point because they're just going to have so much information that's collective, same as Tumblr, is going to be behind paywalls and people are going to pay for information. There's a particular dystopian film that I can't remember where information cost more money than water. I can't remember the name of the film for the life of me.
Johnny Mnemonic, is it?
It could be. It could
Keanu
be.
Reeves one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I fucking
that's
love
where
that
we're
film.
headed.
It's so bad, but I love it.
Yeah, well, it's like Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted is so bad, but it's so bad it's good. In some ways.
Well, in the game Deus Ex Mankind Divided, they have this really interesting concept of an information bank, which is all these massive corporations store all their data on hard copies in servers in a safe in a bank. It doesn't store money; it stores digital information that they can't afford to have plugged into the internet because anything that uses radio waves could potentially be hacked. And I think that that's what they'll do, and so us, the plebs, will be at the mercy of Google, and if we commit wrongthink, we will be top of the search results forever and ever, amen. And if you are an evil git like the rest of the people we've just mentioned, then you will have your information safely stashed away in an information vault.
Yeah. No, completely not agree with that. Completely not agree with that. It's like if Tony Blair decided that he was going to again do some more charity work and then go and try and run for a particular office again. If he wanted to get people to not talk about the wars that he instigated, would he not be able to do the same thing? Or is it because he's a public figure that he couldn't? But where's the law that differentiates between it? All it says is that you can do it. It doesn't give any regulations on what and who can.
See, that's why I kind of like people like me and other people that, I mean, it kind of sucks, but people that have memory issues that just speak the truth because they can't remember the lies that they say if they do say lies. Because all you gotta do, or all you can do really, is tell people the truth.
Yeah, definitely.
This is a thing though, like the people, the zeitgeist at the moment seems to be a very anti-corporation sentiment, and I hate corporations as well. But the thing is that corporations are one thing, but if you look at that film out just now, Vice, the story of Dick Cheney, it's like Dick Cheney was very powerful when he was the head of Halliburton, but he couldn't even imagine the power open to him when he got into government. And people seem to think that the government's their friend and it's the corporations that are the bad guys. It's like, no, it's the exact other way around. A corporation, you actually have some way of hammering. The government are untouchable. And this incident is an example of that, because the European Court of Justice is beholden to nobody. The European Court of Justice came out of an initiative by the EU, but is not part of the EU. So the EU could actually collapse tomorrow, and the European Court of Justice would still be a legal entity.
Yes, and still would be the leading entity for the whole of Europe, as it's a European court, and all the courts are still signed up for that court to be the top court in the land.
And not a single vote was cast for it, not one, because we didn't vote for it as the public. Our politicians didn't vote for it, and the European Union people didn't vote for it.
Nope.
They just created it, gave it legal power, and nobody had. It's just this parallel system that nobody has any control over, and that it has complete control over you. And it's not the same as the European Court of Human Rights either, by the way, which people love to conflate the two.
Yeah, they are two separate courts.
Yeah, because Patrick Stewart, for instance, came out.
He's an idiot.
Yeah, but he I could see what he meant, because he was like going on about the European Court of Human Rights, but he'd confused that with the EU, and he confused the European Court of Justice with the European Court of Human Rights.
Do you know what I find extremely funny about people, and not yourself, but with people that bring up, oh, well, we wouldn't have the same human rights as we have now. Go and have a look at the laws and what lawyers wrote the human rights laws. You will see that between 80 to 90% of them were written by British or UK sitting lawyers, mostly Labour. Believe it or not.
Yeah, and as far as the European entities are concerned, you'll also find a lot of them were written by actual high-ranking members of the Nazi Party.
It depends on the conspiracy theory and tinfoil hat wearing that we want to go down on that aspect. But one thing that I will really quickly point out, which is written right at the bottom of this article, which I find ludicrously funny. Mr. Sepanas, or sorry again for butchering his name, decision was welcomed by the UK digital rights group Article 19, which said European data regulators should not be able to determine the search results that internet users around the world get to see. Now, if anybody knows anything about Article 19, you will actually understand that they are going to literally tax you for using links in your own arguments and actually regulate what you can and cannot do with the Freedom of fucking Information Act and whatnot. So for somebody that's part of that group to say that this is beneficial and actually helps people, I don't think so.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun.
Oh yeah, we've got so much fucking shit going on. Right. Does anybody else want anything to say about this story before we move on to Google's sexual harassment case? And yes, you heard me correct. Google's sexual harassment case.
I'm totally not surprised at all.
I'm not surprised. I find it funny.
Not to whip a dead horse about the topic itself, but just it's another thing to watch out for is anytime some poor old guy who's been completely shafted, or something horrible has been done to a little girl, and that's the premise for a law, and their face is put on it. Move their face out of the way and have a look at all the evil hand-rubbing lawyers behind them and see what they're doing, because it's always a smokescreen. And this is a case of that.
Yeah, very much so. The thing is with something, just very, very quickly, because I see that there's a link between the stories anyway. And I did put it in the description anyway when I wrote it. Say, for instance, that this law is accepted, which it is, but it's going to be rolled out throughout the whole of the European Union, so to speak. Whether you agree with that or not doesn't matter in this point. Google has now just been called, or the alphabet itself has now just been put into a sexual harassment case. Does that mean Google itself, to make itself look and sound better, could delete this from history so people can't search it? Where does it end? Where's the distinction? That's all I'll say on that. So, Google's parent company, Alphabet, sued over sexual misconduct policy. That sounds like something to be deleted in history later, doesn't it?
So it's not Google itself, it's Alphabet, the
Yes.
parent company.
Yeah. The one that actually controls everything
Google.
that Google does.
I didn't even know there was a company above Google. This is how crazy it gets. You pull back the curtain enough times, there's only like 4 companies in the world.
Oh no, Alphabet owns a lot.
Oh, could I just... sorry, I meant to say this in the last story, and it is relevant to Google, is in 2015, Google had forever... The people who founded Google knew how powerful it would be even back then. They didn't know it'd be what it is now, but as a search engine that was so convenient, they knew it'd become massive. And so their motto was, don't be evil. And I thought it was really funny because in 2015, they removed that from their corporate code.
Yeah. It's the whole thing with all of these. See, there's one thing that I really do actually agree with all the socialists and communist left. But yeah, I agree with you. Massive corporations are absolute heinous monsters. I will agree with you on that, and most of them need to be broken up, and nobody should have that much power in the world. I honestly believe that. Not because I don't want to have companies that are that big, but when you have more of an economy or earn more than most countries, you're kind of bigger than most countries at that point. And that's worryingly scary that companies and corporations can be bigger than most countries. That's a worry to me. But
yeah,
that's just...
and the thing is that they use legal powers. It's not like it's not like they're just conducting business and they're very good at it. There's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is these corporations then this is another thing the left can't get their heads around. Corporations love laws. They fucking love them, and they love high taxes. And the reason is, the higher the taxes and the more laws there are, the less competition there is. Which means, like a corporation like Google would rather make a little bit less money in the future if it meant that 4 of their competitors would just disappear overnight. Because then they would know that they're the only people that can make money, which is better than potentially making more money in the short term. And so corporations and the government are the same freaking thing.
No, completely totally agree with you. And I do completely totally agree with you, because even the government, the US is exactly the same when you have lobbyists and things like that go up to it. That they are mostly conducted, the lobbyists, and the same thing in the UK, are mostly conducted by the corporations. They're not done by individual owners. They're not done by individual donors. They have corporations that are backing them, that are giving them the money or going to refund them the money or give them something in return for doing it. These are literally the forms of... I can't remember what it's fucking called now. The actual proper definition. Yeah, I can't remember what the actual definition is. A form of a crony capitalism. There you go. It's actually the proper definition of crony capitalism, where because the government is there, it's being influenced by big conglomerates that they are using their own influence to make laws that will benefit the other people, the corporations, rather than the actual people. People will go, yeah, but capitalism isn't a part of government. No, that's why it's crony capitalism and not capitalism. I mean, if we're going to do definitions, anyway, I don't have the time to go into that. So let's dive into the story properly. Google's parent company, Alphabet, is facing legal action over the way it allegedly handled sexual misconduct claims against 2 senior managers. Separately, 2 lawsuits have been filed by long-term shareholders which accuse Alphabet's board of being involved in attempts to cover up the claims. Both legal claims want Alphabet to do a better job of uncovering and responding to misconduct. Google declined to comment on the lawsuits or whether it will respond. So, does that mean that Alphabet has declined, or is it Google, or is the person who wrote this confused? Am I confused? I'm confused. So, staff protests. The legal action is believed to have been prompted. Again, the BBC have provided a hyperlink there, so if you wanted to go and read that story, then you can go on to the link that I provided at the bottom of the description box, and you can click on that and read at your own heart's content. By the way, that Google handled misconduct claims made against former Andrew boss Andy Rabin and a former search head Amit Singhal, or Steven Seagal. Sorry.
Steven Seagal?
Yeah. I thought I'd just throw that one in there. Both men are believed to have received large payoffs after being investigated over the claims, and neither now works for Google. Both Mr. Rubin and Mr. Steven Seagal have denied the allegations. The way Google handled the incidents prompted demonstrations by staff and led to thousands walking out of their offices in coordinated protests in November. So I don't think we really need to go too much into this because we kind of get what the picture is. There's been allegations of misconduct in a sexual nature. Google itself seems to have done what it normally does and put its head in the sand. And people are now complaining about it. It's not like Google hasn't done this before.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, to be fair. I mean, I'm just surprised that this has actually made it out as an actual story. Then again, it was buried under, I think it was the last story in technology on the BBC website. So it's not like it was a prominent story, but I am surprised they even got published as a story. But again, if the previous story
Don't
comes
you
to
worry,
fruition,
Facebook will see to that.
Exactly. The previous stories themselves, Facebook, Google itself as well, with the right to whatever the fuck it was again, disappear, would be the case of, would this story get completely fucked over? Would it get swept under the rug? Does it make Google look bad? Yes. Is it enough to hide and censor because people will jump onto this story and prove that Google is not as good as they think it is? Yes. What do? Get rid of the story. Well, we've got laws for that now.
Yeah, and you can see all the different pieces coming together and exactly why they want this stuff to happen.
Yes, I have to say that I did very well in compiling where the stories are going and how they've come up.
Yes, there was a very good running theme tonight. Well done.
Yes, I did well. I'm proud of myself. I did well. I'm happy. I don't really have too much to say on this because I know that Google itself has done this. I think it's done it about 3 or 4 times in itself, where it's actually hidden the fact that there's been sexual allegations come across. So I'm pretty sure this has happened a couple of times now. So I'm not surprised, but at the same time, I find it interesting that this story comes across when both, as Crumplepoint said, Facebook and Google themselves and the European Union, because, European Union has decided that they're going to start censoring fake news stories and also the right to disappear. I find that worryingly scary.
Yeah, the other thing is that I find it amusing that if you're working for Google as an engineer or whatever, a tech analyst like James Damore, and you respond with a memo saying, actually, I didn't like that human resources seminar because it wasn't based on fact, and there are notable differences between the workplace habits of men and women, and even sometimes people of different ethnicity, and we should probably do something about that.
Yeah.
That's not allowed. You'll be fired. You'll be lambasted. All the hit pieces against you will be brought to the front page, and all the far more numerous defenses of you will be pushed off the site entirely.
Exactly.
That's fine if you're Google. However, because they're defending women, of course. But if you're a woman who's been sexually assaulted, then they don't care.
You're the bane of existence.
Yeah, you're just annoying.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, what is there to really say about another Google bloody sexual harassment case apart from the company that is held up as this progressive leftist ideology that is the epitome of feminism in itself is still hiding sexual harassment cases?
What I'm not surprised about at all is it's another leftist person and or company in general that is being charged with sexual assault or rape, what have you. And they're trying to hide it. They're trying to cover it up.
Yep. I completely and utterly agree with you. I think that covering up that's coming from corporations in themselves, such as Google and others, big ones as well, which I'm sure other people could name them, are now going in conglomerate with governments, working hand in hand, if you want to, colluding with governments in themselves. And yet, we as the plebeians, as Crumple Point already alluded to, are mostly looking at this going, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I want to be forgotten. It's not for you. It's not for you.
Yeah. You will never see enough money for that. Like, you could go through your whole life, add up all the wages you'll ever make, and you will still not be touching the amount you would require to be able to do that. Unless, of course, you're some kind of political activist, in which case they'll help you along just fine. If you're an Owen Jones or a David Hogg type, they'll probably do you a solid.
Yeah, a solid deuce. Right. Does anybody have anything else to say about this last story? Because I am going to have to get ready to leave because my missus is going to get annoyed if I'm not there at a precise moment in time. And as much as I love talking to you guys, she's the one that gives me sex. So fuck you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. When my husband is wanting my attention, the rest of you guys can fuck off. So if you need to go, get out of here.
No worries. Any last words on any of the stories that we've said today? I'll let ladies go first. So, Sharati, if you want to do a last word, then please do. Even if it's just shilling your own channel for when you want to do it or whatever.
No, I haven't put up a video in a minute, so I'm done.
No, that's fair enough. That's what I mean. If you wanted to show your channel in the chat so people can go and sub to it, then you're more than welcome to, or even your Discord.
Nah.
Yep, that's fine. Go sub to Sharati and go join her Discord. I'm sure if you ask her, she will give it to you. And the Discord.
Who said?
Go ahead, Crumple Boy. I think it's your final word.
Yeah, just cheers for having me on. You can check out my channel under the same name. You can check out my Twitter under the same name of Crumple Point. And thanks to Common Sense Guy for the work he's put to the show and compiling all these stories. And thanks to Sharati and he for providing me with a really good discussion. And I hope we've entertained you guys in the chat. And thank you all for turning up.
No worries. Again, as Crumple Point said, thank you very much, guys. And I mean this to everybody that turned into the chat. Again, for people that have turned up that are worrying about the name change, I got bored of idiots saying, oh, this is common sense. So I thought I put allowed to think, and hopefully they will be allowed to think. So, trying to use some reverse psychology, maybe? I don't know.
No one's allowed to think 2 + 2 = 5.
People can think that. They're just wrong.
There are 4 lights.
Right. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I will bid you farewell. I will bid you adieu, and I will see you all again real soon. Goodbye.